Ciao a tutti. This is Vanessa Racci, the Jazzy Italian, and you're watching the Italian American Podcast.
See that you're born an Italian if you want your life to be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great.
How about some Donadell?
That's a nice.
The great Brandon is here, and could you please repeat that? Because we have the great Vanessa Racci. I'm surrounded by great.
Why don't we start the
And
whole
the great
thing and we can go to that.
Welcome. I don't have the cue cards. What am I supposed to say?
You know what you're supposed to say.
No, really, I forget. Something like ciao paisani.
How many of these have there been? How many?
Ciao paisani. I think that's what Hey there paisani. I don't have cue cards because John's not here, but I like what he says, so I repeat it. But they're coaching me from the side. Hey paisani. Hey there, paisani, and welcome back to another episode of the Italian American Podcast.
Do you know where we are, Pat?
I never pay attention, and I forget, but that sounds good. That's John's opening. What else did I supposed to say?
We're in the heart of Little.
We're in the heart of Little Italy, at the corner of Mulberry and Grand, at Red Sauce Studios, and that's it. That's it. So we're here,
Awesome.
and we have the living incarnation of Connie Francis.
Oh, thank you so much.
So we have the great Vanessa Racci.
Thank you. I love being with Pat because he gasses me up.
I say fact. I am the voice of truth, and I have the great Brandon Ficarra behind me.
Thank you.
Beside me, I am here surrounded by greatness.
You were the meat in a greatness sandwich.
Wow, do you know what Cooks Illustrated, and we've had people on from all these magazines, had an article that the key to a great sub hoagie, whatever you call it, any kind of sandwich with sliced meat in it, is not to lay it flat, but to crinkle it.
Yeah.
Because it's the air pockets that bring it to the next level.
That makes sense.
I
Like
mean,
focaccia, why people prefer that.
You gotta have it all crinkled. So the sandwich, you gotta take with like the super sub, whatever you have to crinkle it.
Yeah.
And then make the sandwich, because the crinkling,
Yeah.
there's something with that. Because if you lay it on like thick,
Yeah.
just slice after slice,
You won't get the right air
you don't get the
pocket.
right. It's the air pockets that are, and they got that from somebody in the New York Times. I think that was like a second.
Yeah. I don't know if I buy it, but I do it. But then
Why
I
don't
think
you
about
buy
it
it?
because I think about a Cuban sandwich, which is a pressed sandwich.
Sure.
Oh.
Or a panini.
Yeah,
pressed.
Oh, that's
and
a
you
good
know
point.
what? They're delightful. So
If we had an Italian American morning drive show, this would be it right now.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Morning drive. Like diners, dive-ins and drives, but Italian American style. Although he is
Like a
Italian.
drive-in, like at 8 a.m., people driving to work,
Yeah, that's cute.
and we would be talking about what we're going to eat for dinner. That's a very Italian.
Yeah.
if and you and I at least have faces for radio, so we'd have been great.
Sure. I liked radio.
It'd have been a waste of all your talents at that point. Not singing.
I was happy.
not
See, now
visible.
you're picking the scab. That's what John dragged me onto this television. I call this like TV. We were much
Not
happier on
television.
radio. I could have been in my pajamas.
This
I was
isn't radio.
I was at peace. I was at peace.
You
I
could
was
wear
in the
your pajamas
basement.
here.
I was fine. We were taping, and
I
then
was in the
John.
basement.
I was. You could do anything you wanted.
You could hear when you switched over your discomfort of having to wear pants.
It was happy, and now I got to be
You
here.
can still wear pajamas. Nobody will see.
Can't wear pajamas.
You can wear pajama
These
pants.
kids wear that today. They walk around in pajamas and those Uggs, those furry
They're
shoes.
comfortable.
From the 80s.
But they were from the 80s Uggs? No,
100%.
they were not.
I think they've been around a while.
I never saw them in the 80s.
I didn't wear
Maybe
them.
that was a Philly thing. I don't know. We never had
I
them.
was on the.
That's probably down in Philadelphia, but the Jersey people never. Our Jersey, not your Jersey. There is a demarcation. There were no Uggs in North Jersey in the 1980s and 90s. This a new
in South
thing.
Jersey, there was a ton.
Maybe you were ahead of us.
In most things. Speaking of which, I'm from South Jersey.
Yeah.
I came up to do this podcast to pinch hit for John. And in the anticipation of you being on the show, I was like, I have 2.5 hours. Let me see. And so I went on my Apple Music, and I listened all the way through to both of your albums.
Wow.
And
I'm impressed.
I had heard you on the Christmas album that these jabronis did, and you were phenomenal there. Hearing your albums, just fantastic work.
Thank you.
Yeah, just wonderful. And this being...
Yeah, Jazz Heritage Month is April every year. And I actually I did like a Jazz Heritage celebration, Italian Americans and Jazz celebration at Rutgers on Saturday with Marge Fontana and the New Jersey Italian Heritage Commission. We did it a little earlier than April, but it was really awesome, and I got to, sing through basically everything on my second album, Jazzy Italian, go from Nick LaRocca in Sicily all the way through to Chick Corea, John Pizzarelli, and share the history of Italian Americans in jazz.
So how did you, and it works, your voice is perfect for jazz.
Thank you.
But how did you, of all the styles you could pick, obviously, being a jazz musician is like, being a Latin teacher in a lot of ways, where it's this beautiful thing, but it's not.
It's rare.
The prevalent popular music right now. How did you wind up in jazz?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I grew up living with my grandfather, Francesco Priscentelli, as I always tell people, and he lived in the basement apartment, although my mom says it's the first floor walk-in. You can't say basement apartment.
How does that sound like I kept my father in the basement? I could hear my mother say the same thing. Why do you go and tell people that? He wasn't in a basement. You think I would put my father in a basement? Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do a show, a whole show, fantastic show, and then she'll have that critique after the show.
And you'll never hear the end of it.
Exactly.
For months and months. Why do you always do that? I tell you not to do that.
Yes.
You know how that makes me sound?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I understand.
But anyway, but growing up living with him, even though I'm a millennial, I listened to all the music that he played. Like he would play Louis Prima, Jerry Vale, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Connie Francis. And I didn't realize it was jazz at the time because they were actually like the popular music of their era. And then I got into like R&B and pop, and I would sing like, Alicia Keys and Celine Dion and all that stuff. And Gwen Stefani, I used to have a bindi in the middle of my head and go to school like that. I wonder why I was made fun of. No. But anyway. And so... and then as I matured as a musician, I started doing musical theater, and then I found jazz, but it was always kind of part of my upbringing when I realized, Louis Prima, Frank Sinatra were jazz, and I was like, I really like this. And just my look and my soul, I feel like, is older. I wanted to do something that kind of like fit my image and who I am. And so I started digging into the jazz songbook. I learned hundreds of tunes, toured with a trio. And after my grandfather passed away, I decided to do something that was more like personal to me. And so I wanted to reinvent all the Italian classics that he taught me with jazz arrangements. And so I combined my two loves of Italian heritage and jazz. And that's kind of how my weird niche was born. And then I started touring with that album, which was Italiana Fresca. And I had a show in New Orleans, and I went to the Jazz Museum and the Italian American Museum, and I was like, oh, wow.
Are they next door?
Yeah, no, they're not. but I was like, wow, I can't believe how rich the history is of Italian Americans in jazz. And I was like, that's another album. And so that's when I started studying the history and did it as my second album, Jazzy Italian.
Now, why, might be a silly question, but
yeah.
Why is Italian American
no, it's not a silly
history
question.
rich? Like,
yeah,
what
no, it's
led
a great
the
question.
Italian Americans to?
So a lot of Sicilian Americans immigrated to New Orleans at the turn of the century, at the time that jazz was being developed in New Orleans. And at the time, Italian Americans were discriminated against. Obviously, you know about that mass lynching in, was it 1910?
1891.
1891, sorry. And they often lived and worked in the same neighborhoods as the discriminated black population as jazz was forming. And of course, we all know that jazz is like rooted in, black music traditions, such as like blues mixed with ragtime. And so they all lived there, like growing up as this was forming. And so that's why I think so many Italian Americans are just, it's in our blood, if you came, from Sicily, and moved to New Orleans.
And it's, as far as like its improvisational nature, I feel like that lends itself to an Italian American sensibility.
Absolutely.
Of kind of freewheeling and figuring it out and kind of.
Yeah.
not being restrained by things that make sense.
Right. Like the Napolitan folk music is very much like call and response. Like there's so much improvisation in that. Also, do you know that Italians invented the study of voice?
Sure, all that stuff we invent. I mean, when it comes to like Renaissance schools of thought, there was always that was the golden
like no
era.
one studied how to sing until Italian Americans invented it, and then that they started teaching
Also,
people how to sing.
Italian Americans invented it.
I'm sorry, Italian.
Like all the way back,
Italians.
like Renaissance, right? Like
Yes.
15 something.
Yes.
So that's why
15 and change.
most of the musical terms are Italian words, right?
Yes, like
Arpeggio.
crescendo,
You know how to play an
ritardando.
instrument?
I do. I can play at least 3 chords in any one song of guitar.
What's a chord?
A chord is a collection
That's all you
of
need.
notes.
That is all you need for pop music.
Yeah,
There's
that's
only
all.
3
What's a
chords in every
chord?
pop. It's like
I really
Do you
didn't
know
do
what a
well with it. I
triad is?
tried so hard, but I did not
Like,
do
you
well.
ever
Too
notice
deep.
how like
Triad.
on a piano, like a piano player will put his fingers like 1 3 5,
Yeah.
or 1 3 5 7 or whatever.
Yeah.
Ding. It's a series of notes that like sound good together. It's like ding. I don't know
Like
how to
us.
describe.
You
it.
know that?
Yeah.
Where'd you learn that in school?
No, I was in a band in high school.
So how'd you learn how to
I
play an
didn't
instrument?
By picking one up and
Oh, you have that
trying.
gift. You have to have it. I don't have a
My
drop
brother
of that in
was
me.
fairly gifted musician. Like he picked up piano really quickly, guitar really quickly, and was really, really good. I
Yeah.
was a ham and egger. I just worked really hard to be almost adequate. And really, I was more of, I like to write songs, so.
So you can write music? God bless you. You can read it and write
I
it?
wouldn't call what I do writing music, but I can express myself musically, would
Yeah.
be how I'd say. In a very, much like a caveman can express
No, but I mean,
himself intellectually.
That's all you need.
Do you
That's all
think do you think it ran in your family, music?
That's so funny you asked this because both my parents are kind of tone deaf. Oh, but I'm gonna cry. But I have to say this. So you know who had a great singing voice, and he died too soon, and you kind of remind me of him.
Who?
My Uncle Ray, and today is the 10th anniversary of his death, of
Oh,
his
I'm
passing,
sorry.
and he died too soon. And hold on,
Was he your uncle through blood or through marriage?
through blood? It was my dad's youngest brother. Hold on, I can't get to it. Here he is. He was a chiropractor. And he loved to sing, and he sang to his wife at his wedding. And he also asked me to sing for his wedding. And
Did he have the same gift that you do vocally?
so he had a lot of raw talent that was not honed, I would say. If he was still alive, I would say, Uncle Ray, let me give you lessons. But he did have a beautiful, like, natural tone, and he loved to sing Elvis.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And your voice has been honed.
Oh, yeah. Like, I started singing when I was 4. I started doing professional theater at the age of 12, and then I took private lessons like my whole life. Like I still take lessons to just like refine. It's like, you know, if you're a professional athlete, you still have to have a coach, you know, to like keep pushing.
Yeah. Or anything, really. Everybody should
yeah.
have some sort of coaching, no matter where they are, unless you're perfect like Pat.
And I should mention that I did find out too late in life, unfortunately, that I am related to Tony Mottola, who is a very talented jazz guitarist. He toured with Sinatra. So this is you're going to appreciate this because this is very Italian American. My grandfather would always say, "Oh, you like to sing? Oh, my cousin was a guitarist. Oh, that's
Tony
it."
Mottola.
He did not realize, he was a simple man, he was a carpenter, my grandfather, and he didn't realize how famous he was.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And then after he passed away and we were going through his things, we found his first record called Mr. Big, and it was signed to Cousin Frank, Love Tony. I was like, are you kidding me? This is the cousin that was the guitarist.
That's insane. That's amazing.
That's where you get it from.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what
There's definitely a genetic, I think, inclination towards
And
music.
my great-grandfather, who immigrated from Gioia del Colle in Puglia, was a piano tuner.
Oh, that's where you get it from.
So, yeah, maybe.
But is that on your grandfather's side? Is that the same side?
Yeah, the Priscintelli side. So my mother's side of the family, it was his father.
That was your grandfather's father?
Yes.
Oh, that's where you get it from then.
Maybe.
I think all that stuff's genetic.
Yeah, maybe.
And this might be a little music nerdy, and I was starting to mention it before and wanted to save it for this, but in listening to your music on the way up, the vibrato in your voice
Thank you.
is, I said it feels like somebody, it's the sonic equivalent of somebody throwing a rock into a pond.
Thank
Like
you.
it just had such like, and vibrato is the
When your voice shakes,
Yeah.
like ah.
there it is.
It's like straight tone is ah versus vibrato ah. The little wobbles.
And some,
Yeah.
you know, I think I always enjoy it, right? But yours had like this such a natural kind of quality of,
Thank you.
like, and when I say natural, I mean like of nature. It really did feel like it was you know, a ripple in a stream, which is how I always imagine jazz. I always imagine
you.
jazz like a running stream
Yeah.
where it's just chaotic, but there's the order to it. It's all going in the same direction, but who knows how it's going to get there. And
I
there's-
appreciate you saying that because it is that vibrato is natural. I actually had to be professionally trained to sing straight tone,
Ah.
but my
Who would
vibrato
do
is
that?
natural. Well, because jazz is like too much vibrato is bad in jazz. Like you need to sing straight tone. You can only do it like at the end of phrases, you know,
Oh, that's interesting.
How would that sound?
like at the end of phrases.
Yeah.
Luck be a lady tonight. You see how it's like straight and then goes into the. Ella Fitzgerald did that a lot. She would straight tone it and then, you know.
She did okay.
Yeah, she was.
I've heard one or two of her songs.
Yeah.
She had promise. I don't think she ever amounted to anything.
You're
That's
tough.
too bad.
You're tough.
Who? Ella? No, Ella's my favorite.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, she's definitely my favorite.
Who in this modern of the people
Yes.
who are still young and hip and with it,
Yeah.
like yourself,
Yes.
who are the musicians, the singers that we,
Yeah.
the people during Jazz Heritage Month
Yeah.
that we should all be giving a listen to?
Yes. Oh, I have such a list because.
Limit it to 3.
Oh,
kidding.
three. Oh my God. But jazz is actually having a resurgence with all of the like speakeasies that are opening in Manhattan, and I'm booked now more than I ever have been. So like I know it's still niche, but it's doing really well right now. It's doing better now than it was in like the 90s.
Isn't everything?
Yeah, that's true. But okay, so let's see. Benny Benack, amazing. He's kind of like today's Louis Prima.
Okay.
So he plays and he sings. And he's wild on stage. He's got a lot of energy. So like, go see Benny Benack for sure. Veronica Swift, although she kind of has like transitioned into fusion, like she crosses genres. So she like crosses jazz with like Led Zeppelin. Like she's very interesting.
hear that
Yeah, she's
immediately.
very interesting. Cyril Amé, she's from New Orleans actually. She's like gypsy French jazz. Gabrielle Stravelli, another paisan. She is
go.
Italian jazz. Roberta Gambarini from Italy. She's also Italian jazz. Simona De Rosa, also Italian jazz.
Now, when you say Italian jazz, are
yes.
these just Italians who do jazz, or is there a subgenre that's
Both.
Italian jazz?
Both.
Is she back in the States?
Simona?
Yeah, she was in China for a while.
She's in Germany now, I think.
Oh,
But yeah, she travels all over the world.
It's like Flat Stanley, that one.
Yeah, she's amazing. I think she just recorded a new album that she's touring with. Who else? I would like to say Danny Becker. Unfortunately, he passed away too soon. He passed away in December, but he was a friend of mine and really amazing. Alexis Cole, Jane Munheit. She's one of my idols. Who else? Like there's Samara Joy. She just won the Grammy. Nicole Zaritis just won a Grammy for jazz. They're killer. There's a new young girl. What's her name? She's just up and coming. Oh my gosh, Stella Cole. She sounds like Judy Garland, but she's like 20.
Huh.
And she has like that, somewhere over the rainbow, like that kind
Oh,
of voice. But it's like authentic, Yeah, there's a lot of us out there doing
awesome.
jazz. Yeah.
Now, do you? I noticed on your albums, and I'm certainly not like a jazz historian, but most, if not all, of the songs were like from like the songbook. Mm-hmm. Do you work with any composers? Are you working on any
Absolutely.
original?
Yes.
Yeah?
Actually, there is an original on my second album.
Oh, which one?
Come Back Home With Me, I wrote.
Did you?
Yeah,
That's
oh,
a
you
beautiful
liked it?
song. I love that
Thank
song.
you.
And I was thinking, like, there's a couple I didn't quite recognize.
Yeah.
But because they're kind of in there, I was like, well, it must be something.
Right.
It sounds like this is something.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, that's a. You wrote. Now, did you write the lyrics, the music, both?
I wrote the lyrics and the melody, and then I worked with a composer to write the accompaniment.
Now,
So-
how much heroin do you have to do to write a jazz song?
I'm totally clean, so I don't I don't do anything. But you do have to have some sort of heartbreak or like feeling. You like I don't understand how you can be like young. Like I'm not that young. I'm middle aged, but I don't understand how you can be young and be a jazz singer because you have to have been through stuff to write a song. You know.
I find that as experience, you get more experiential.
Yeah.
Trauma and heartache through life.
Yeah.
But when you're in that young pocket in your 20s, you feel everything more.
That's true.
And
That's a
so
good point.
I think that while it's not as maybe as mature of heartache, it sometimes makes up for that maturity in its amplification.
Like Adele's first album, 21, right? Was that the name of it?
Sure. Yeah.
But I always think about like her singing that, and I'm like, oh my God, how did she have all that
And some people
emotion and intuition at like 20?
just kind of tap into the vein of creativity.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter how old they are.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
where
yeah.
it's, you know.
But I wrote that song when my husband tried to leave me, so that was my heartache.
Geez.
We were dating for, I don't know, 7 years, and he tried to leave me in the 4th year because I wasn't sure if I wanted to have children. And he said, well, I don't want you to resent me because I really want children, so I think we have to part ways. And I was like, are you crazy? You're going to leave me just because I don't want to have children? I was like, you're never going to find somebody like me again. And so I was like, that's a song.
Now, why did you get into music rather than marriage counseling? With that story, because you're phenomenal. That's just, what are you, nuts? We'll get a dog.
Well, my rationale to him was like, listen, I'm young. I don't want to have kids now. I probably will in the future. And also, like, you're going to give this up. I think we have something special. So, and I was right.
So he failed. He failed in his one attempt to leave you.
Yes, he
And
couldn't.
I'm sure he's grateful every day that he's
Absolutely.
an abject failure.
I bring it up, and every time I sing that song, he's like, "Oh," he goes, "I have a pit in my stomach because it's embarrassing, and it was stupid of me." And I was like, "Well, the song will live on forever."
You'll never have
Do
nothing
you
more time
compose a
than that.
lot?
I don't. I want to get into doing more of that. I don't know how to do it very well, and I just got accepted into the Jazz Masters program at SUNY Purchase in the conservatory, so I can learn how to compose myself better. So like I know
need
how
better
to.
self-composure.
But
as well.
that's a big commitment.
Yeah.
And you're going back to school for this.
Yes. I know.
That's amazing.
I'm a little scared. I'm like, what am I doing? But yeah.
What's the worst that happens?
Yeah, I can
You're not
drop
going to
out.
forget things you know going in.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But
That's true, and it's only 2 years versus 4 years because it's a master's program, but it's something I've always wanted to do because I think you know my story. Like my parents didn't believe music was a real career, so they pushed me to go to school for business, and so I never went.
And
to
you did
undergrad.
well.
I did very well.
You
And
gave up a lot for
in
your
school and
career.
or business?
I did. What? What?
When you say you did well, you did well in school or you did well after school in business?
Both.
What was your straight job?
My straight job was I was a marketing director at PepsiCo, so I had like a
I've heard of it.
serious job. I had a serious job, and I was managing a team of 5 people and making $200,000 a year when I left.
Oh wow!
And so when I told my mom I was leaving, you know, they came from humble beginnings, so they hear you making that amount of money, and they're like, why would you leave that?
Yeah, this is their chance to not have to eat cat food under a bridge when they're old, and you're gonna blow it on being a singer.
Right, exactly. And I was like, well, that's disheartening because I thought you would have more faith in me because I'm doing well as a singer. But, you know, I'm not making as much as I made at Pepsi, but I'm doing well. I'm doing well enough to like invest the money back into my next album and pay, you know, for my expenses. And it honestly makes me happier because I believe that's what I was put on this earth to do. And I want to spend all my time doing that.
Yeah, you only get
So-
one go.
Exactly.
Nobody.
Exactly.
I know it as a fun exercise, and we'll do it here as a group. Because a lot of people get stressed out about money. We've all been there, right? And we're, you know, potentially currently there. But I always say, okay, think back, pick a date from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now tell me, what was your account balance on that day?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because it's this thing that only in the present stresses you out. It's not
Yes.
something that really matters long term. As long as you don't starve to death.
Yes, right.
As long
right.
as you don't, you know, get
And my husband's working, you know, it's not
can't
like
keep a roof over your head.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the money literally is like just a thing that creates stress in the now that you won't ever remember where you were financially.
Yeah.
You know, you'll remember maybe things you had or this or that, but
Yeah.
so it's what you will definitely remember is that job you were in that was killing your soul. Mm-hmm. What you'll definitely remember is that boss who didn't understand you and didn't help you work the way that you would work best.
Yes.
Those are the things that will be burned into you, not how much in the
Absolutely.
account. So when you have the choice, I always, and my bank account reflects this, I always go towards doing what I think I'm supposed to do
Yeah.
rather than what would be the most financially viable thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm a go-getter. I'm really motivated. I have a strong business background, so I'm doing really well. Like, I'm able to make a good living out of performing. I have 50 performances per year. I get good royalties. C'è la luna mezzo mare, because it's public domain.
Oh, nice.
Does really well.
TV placements?
Yep. TV, and I made an amazing playlist on Spotify called Italian Dinner Party. So this was like a bucket list event. It's Jerry Vale, Connie Francis, Louis Prima, and my song. I was like, ah!
How cool is that?
It was really, really cool.
Screenshot of that and send it to
I
the parents.
did, yes. What was I going to say? And I also teach. I teach voice, so that's like a supplementary income as well. So, but yeah, I'm doing fine. My parents see that now. We did have to move out of Manhattan. But anyway, can I explain a little bit more about the history of Italian Americans?
Absolutely.
I would love
That is why you are here, my friend. Absolutely.
I would love to. Okay. So it all started in New Orleans, 1917. But as Sicilians were immigrating to New Orleans at the turn of the century, again, they were living and working in the same neighborhoods as black musicians. And one of those Sicilian Americans was Nick LaRocca. And he formed the original Dixieland Jazz Band and made the very first jazz recording in history. And he would be more well known in history, except for the fact that he shot himself in the foot and claimed to start jazz single-handedly, discounting an entire black population that, So, but he is a part of history. He just claims to have done more than he actually did. But it was a true blend of African-American roots music, blues, ragtime, European influence, and that.
Was he the guy that died young?
He did die, but
No, there's a famous Italian American jazz. I think it's jazz. He died young in his 30s, and they never told his mother.
It wasn't him. No.
Told his mother?
No, because the mother. I mean,
You're
of the
thinking
time.
of Bobby Darin?
No.
Oh.
This was early on. The guy, the mother was widowed. And there was like 7 kids, and they wouldn't tell the mother that the brother died.
Oh, I don't know.
So there was
who
no
that
So
is.
Sunday
telephones.
dinner when
He was
empty seat.
He was
nobody-
gone for years, and they said, "Oh, he's on the road. He's on the road, and it's Christmas. Why didn't he come back?"
So she thought her son was this miserable guy who never
yeah,
gave his
correct.
mother attention.
Because the parents, the siblings wouldn't tell her that he was killed.
That's very Italian.
That's true.
Mom
We had to
can't
have our
handle it.
moment.
Oh, we have to lie. That's very Italian.
That's so funny.
We have to. What can we do? It was a
Yeah.
sin. We had to
Is
lie to
there?
her.
Can we go pause 1 second?
So we can look it up. Yeah.
I know an Italian guy who was widowed. He'd be into his 90s now, and what he would do was he always knew somebody who was dead, so he would go for a wake every single day. He would go to a wake every day, and he would go like 2 to 4. Go home and have a snack. Go 7
You
to
go
9.
awake every day. That's
And then the following morning, he'd go to the funeral, and they invite him to the repast. And then go eat the repast, go home,
Eat for
and then
free
go the
every
next
day.
week. Yeah, he used to go to the wake. He used to go to a different funeral every day.
Did he know the people, or was it just?
It was. I mean, he knew everybody. I mean, it was enough of people. When you live in a community your whole life, that you always know somebody who's dead.
Does your family? Does every Italian family do the rule of 3?
Yeah, they're waiting for you here.
So,
That's another great one. Oh, who's gonna be number 3? Looking around the room. Yeah,
And then once you hear about the 3rd, they're like, "We're safe."
Yeah. But it always seems to happen.
It does.
But like you're like, oh, that's ridiculous, and also like,
Right.
bing 1,
Yeah.
bing 2.
Now
Bing
this
3.
guy, I'm fascinated. This guy who went to the funerals every day
Correct.
for the food, generally.
He was home and he was lonely. He was widowed. There was nobody home.
What
and
if he was a killer? And he was doing
Oh.
because if they don't die, you don't get fed, you don't get
This is
company.
where you go to like that place, like that
You got to
This is like a
feed
murder
the
kid who
Yeah.
comes up with like horror stories. That would never have entered my mind. That's like a Twilight
the first
Zone.
thing that entered my mind.
Yeah, because you have that. You're Twilight
Italian
Zone
jazz.
Yeah, back to Italian jazz.
So Nick Rocca.
Yes. So after Nick, there was a string of Italian Americans that came out of New Orleans who were very, very well versed in jazz, such as Leon Ropolo. And he started one of the most influential jazz bands of the 20th century, the New Orleans Rhythm Kings. And he actually took a lot of New Orleans musicians and went up to Chicago and combined them with Chicago musicians, and they developed Nork. And I sing one of his songs on my album, "Make Love to Me." Those lyrics were not added at the time, but they were added back in the 50s by, was it Johnny Mercer, I think? Anyway, and so then it started like the spread of jazz. Obviously, not only Italian Americans spread jazz, but these were some of the specific Italian Americans who did, and it also led to people like Guy Lombardo, Harry Warren, Henry Mancini, Louis Prima, and the list goes on, because I've often wondered, like, why so many Italian Americans owned jazz clubs. Like, I could think of, like, 5 that are owned by Italian Americans, and I'm like, why is that, And I think it's because, like, we have this, like, rich history.
It's cash business.
Like,
Yeah,
yes, that's
we
true.
love a cash business. After rent, we love a cash business. Rent is the
true.
number one, and then cash business is a close second.
You're like, that's
Pizzeria,
not why,
barber.
Vanessa. Like, Birdland is owned by Johnny Valenti. Jazz Forum is Mark Morganelli. Who else? The Triad is owned by Charles Piazza. Dom, I don't know the owner of Dom, but they're Italian American, I believe. Anyway, and then Michael Imperioli from The Sopranos just opened. Is that his name, Michael Imperioli? Yeah. He
was just
opened,
here for another.
No way.
Not for the Italian American podcast, for something else. He was in the studio.
Yeah, he started a jazz club, Scarlet Lounge, I think, which I'm trying to get into, by the way, Michael. And and so anyway, the list goes on. And I think that's why, like, because there's such a rich history, and we grew up listening to people like, Frank Sinatra and Louis Prima.
Sure.
Frank Sinatra was also one of the most popular entertainers of all time who popularized jazz, because a lot of people didn't listen to jazz until Frank Sinatra. So many people I know listen to Frank Sinatra and say they don't like jazz. I'm like, he is jazz.
Wait
you
a
like
second.
jazz. I don't, Tony Bennett, same thing. He kept it alive. He was like really a pioneer for like partnering with young jazz singers. Or
Those
like
duets albums were
yes.
big.
Diana Krall, Amy Winehouse, Lady Gaga now is in the jazz scene. And then a lot of people don't know, like, Chick Corea was Calabrese, because he did a lot of jazz fusion, Latin jazz, so people just assumed he was Hispanic, but he's not. And played a huge role in the birth of jazz fusion. So yeah, there's such a rich history. And go ahead, James.
Now I know you've studied the topic quite a bit. During a lot of the pushback, which a lot of it was racially motivated, but the pushback against jazz in America.
Like in the beginnings when people thought it was dirty.
Yeah, exactly. Now, did within the Italian American communities, was there more grace because there was so much involvement?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure because of the white skin, but I don't know for sure.
Do you think they would have been that engaged at that time? I think like Italian communities were separate. I mean, there's the before
Separate
the
from
war, because I think
popular
that
culture?
America before the war, that Italian communities were their own. For that to happen, you need like a consolidated national movement. You need media that kind of unites the messaging, in the sense that Italian communities, if you go there before the war, before World War II, you still have the predominant amount of people are immigrants who don't speak English, who don't listen to that kind of music. If they can read, they're reading Italian language newspapers that are talking about Mussolini and Europe and the feast that's going on. They're not talking about jazz. I'm saying like the awareness, like how much that New Orleans is a different animal.
Yeah,
because that's a whole different place. But
right.
I just wonder, so the children of those immigrants, right, to the extent that they were involved in something like jazz, it would be fractional in the percentage. Does that make
makes
sense?
sense. Yeah,
It
yeah.
does, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so Louis Prima was a rarity. I think Louis Armstrong influenced him, and he influenced Louis Armstrong. Like, I think Louis Armstrong says he was one of his favorites, and many jazz musicians, such as Louis Prima, Frank Sinatra, they actually promoted mixed race bands.
Sure.
Frank was like a huge supporter. Like he.
A lot of inroads
with Sammy Davis Jr.
integration.
Yeah.
We had the gentleman on who basically took care of Frank Sinatra's toupee.
Oh my God, how fun!
Right, we had him
oh my
on.
gosh.
If you go back, you'll see him in one of our past episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I don't listen to episodes, if this story made it onto the actual episode. But he told that Frank Sinatra had gone somewhere with Sammy Davis Jr. In a hotel, and they refused him Sammy Davis Jr. entry. Mm-hmm. And Frank said, "We're out of here.
Yes.
I'll destroy. Like this, we're done with you."
I've heard that story too. Yeah.
I think that's even more of a feather in our cap.
Yeah.
Because if you take like Dean, the stuff that, now I know that they're separate from the jazz world, right? They're entertainers of the same period, maybe a little bit later. But he basically said like the Italian American entertainers didn't play ball with that. Now I'm sure someone's going to write in comments and say there's somebody who did, but
Yeah,
I was
right,
very
right.
impressed with that story.
Me too,
Well, that
me
was a
too.
lot behind their support for Kennedy, wasn't it?
Yes, I think Sinatra and his camp also supported Kennedy a lot. I don't know the details of that, but
Because the interesting thing I find about Sammy Davis Jr. was he was a Afro-Caribbean.
Oh,
His mother was Cuban.
I didn't know that. Oh, very cool. And so I have this is a little bit of a tangent, but related. So do you know the Pizzarelli family? They're also a big family in jazz, like Bucky Pizzarelli and John
Sure,
Pizzarelli.
weren't they in Jersey?
Jersey.
They
Yeah,
were in
they're
Patterson.
Jersey.
They're
Yep.
Patterson people.
Yep. And I covered one of John Pizzarelli's songs on my second album. It's called A Lifetime or Two. But they're like that family is so steeped in jazz. Like they've worked with everyone from like Duke Ellington, Count Basie, like the Beatles, Rosemary Clooney, yada yada. Anyway, but I had the rare opportunity to sing with Bucky, and he was in his 90s, still gigging. His hands were all like mangled from arthritis, from like the guitar and everything. And I was so nervous at the time because I was like a new singer, and he's like, "Come on, sweetheart, come sing a song." And he was like so supportive, you know. He's like, "Come sing a song." And he at that time he didn't accept money. He said he sang for pasta, which was so sweet. And then the owner, after I sang a song, the owner pulls me over of the place and he said, "Come here for a second, I gotta tell you something." I'm like, "What?" He's like, The bassist wants to take you home." And I'm like, "Ew, how creepy." And he's like, "It's Jerry Bruno," and he's 90 years old. I was like, "Aw, how sweet." Like, it kind of changed.
Yeah, it's amazing
way-
how, you know,
That's
you
one
get
of
to
the
a
best
certain
stories
age.
we ever had on here.
Really? Oh, thank you. But they
Because
were
you all like
guys.
keep up that old man still had playing them.
Yeah, and it's like
Yeah.
kind of sweet. I'm like, oh, and like they played with Sinatra. They toured with him.
Sweetheart, if I was 70 years younger.
Yes. And I sat down to eat with them after they performed, and I was like, "So Jerry, can you tell me any stories about Frank?" And he's like, "I can't. I'd have to kill you." It's like he wouldn't tell me any like secret stories, but they're really legends. That was like the OG jazz
and
generation.
like when you think about what they saw and did, like,
yes.
I mean, they were no strangers to just probably all sorts of really wild nights.
I'm sure.
That's
I
neat.
think they put like, we get a lot of I don't want to say pressure. We get beat up a lot from the Italians from Italy who watch us,
Yeah.
who don't want us to use the word Italian at all. They're like, "You're American, just be American."
Whatever.
So I mean, we get a lot of,
I know,
and they're just annoying people to
Yeah,
begin with.
exactly.
That comment.
So should you not say that
You
for
know
any
who
other
you are.
culture too? Should you not say that for like any other?
But the reason I bring it up is that I'm sure they take ownership of stuff like the jazz, because jazz has a I think jazz, people have spoken about what has America really invented.
Yeah.
Right, and we invented
Jazz
stuff
is one,
like
yeah.
air conditioning and refrigerators
Baseball
and
and-
baseball.
Yeah.
But you know,
Hamburgers? I don't know.
we were talking before about it, like
and
Italy-
jazz, right?
and jazz is one of our.
The most American.
Somebody said something. Was somebody famous said, the only two things Americans really can take. It was some Frenchman said this. The only two things Americans really can take ownership of is jazz and AA. They were the two concepts that were nowhere else in the world, and we came
And
up with both of
AA.
them.
Oh, that's so funny.
And if you take
hand
that,
in hand, really.
Yeah.
but think about it in the sense that What was the Italian? Is there and I don't know because I don't know music. I say this from a complete position of ignorance.
No problem.
Is there an Italian American aspect to jazz in the sense of if you take comedians, right?
Yeah.
So you take like Jimmy Durante. This is kind of more up your alley. Like, do you think that like
big Durante buff myself?
Are you really?
Oh no, not at all.
You're not.
I mean, I know of him and he's wonderful, but I don't. But anyway,
But I'll tell you what. I want to do a Jimmy Durante episode.
Oh yeah.
Because I'll tell you what my theory is. He is the first Italian American star. Period. Full stop, as the British would say. Like, there's no pop. I mean, remember, he's born in the 1890s. He's World War I generation. He's the first popular star, age-wise, in the U.S. that's an Italian American. That's a definable Italian American.
And the only singer I can listen to who makes me cry every time. I listen to his voice when he does "I'll Be Seeing You."
You're right. I never thought about that.
Or
he's the first.
Did he do "I'll Be Seeing You" or did he do "You Must Remember This"?
Yes.
As time goes by, that's
time goes
it.
by.
It's just such a heart wrenching voice.
His family's from Sal Consolino in Salerno. I know people who are related to him.
oh yeah.
And I just feel he was the first American star, and then everybody else comes after him.
Interesting. I wonder if we can prove that. That would be cool.
Well, I mean, think about it. Who else? Who earlier?
Charlie
now
Chaplin, was he a star?
but Charlie Chaplin's first. Like, if you take Caruso and you take Rudolph Valentino, they were Italians.
Yes.
They
Oh,
were
you're saying the
Italians.
first Italian American.
First
star.
Italian American
Got
who
it.
grew up here.
Yeah.
He's the first Italian American
And he
star.
was before Louis Prima. Yep.
I mean, who else can you name?
What were when did he break? When did the world know who?
Well,
Jimmy
I would
was?
say the 20s, I guess. I mean, he's 1890s, right? So he's born.
Let's
He's
see,
the
who is
first
the-
generation.
But I always feel like I don't feel like I've seen him as a youth. Like I feel like he got.
But those
big
people
later
were
in
never
life.
young. Did you ever see a young
That's
George
true.
Burns?
That's a good point. Well, young, yeah, not young.
Are you saying he's the first American star or first Italian?
Italian American
Okay,
star.
Italian.
It's Jimmy Durante.
Let me
And,
see.
that's my opinion. I don't know anybody else who you could
I
say
can't think of anybody earlier.
because Lou
Rudolph
Costello's.
Valentino is
he was
often
Italian.
But he was
considered
born in Italy.
one of
Rudolph
the-
Valentino was born in Italy. Caruso's born in Italy. So they were true Italian stars.
right.
But the first
I think you
Italian
might be right.
American.
That's an amazing thing.
I think you might be right. I don't know. We'll delve into this a bit more, but it sounds
That's
plausible.
that's
And you know what's interesting about Jimmy Durante is he very much, if he was the first, which it seems like he may be, commenters, you'll figure this out. But he very much set the tone for the importance of personality
yeah.
in the music, right? Like, and I think Louis Prima
that is
continued
that
that.
is super. That's a
Like where
pause
there's-
moment. That is super deep.
Well, there's so many phenomenal voices out there,
yeah.
right? Of all ethnicities.
Yeah.
But I feel like what the Italian Americans are known for
Yeah.
is that personal stamp. Even like if you listen to like early Frank Sinatra,
Yeah.
God, what a beautiful voice. But as he gets older, his voice doesn't get any worse, but the personality increases, and just his intonation
Yeah.
becomes more authentically him.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's I mean, obviously, Dean Martin and Rosemary Clooney, who I believe did the best job of emulating that.
Yeah.
You know, where she made a career on, because she wasn't Italian at all.
No,
correct?
but she sang Mambo Italiano. Yeah.
But she saw that personality in the music that the Italian Americans had, and she was able to channel it, emulate it, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
to
Rip us off. No, I'm kidding.
well, look, they talk about cultural appropriation. I believe that cultural appropriation, in a lot of cases, is a fair critique or criticism.
Uh-huh.
But I also believe that if you want to actually be a melting pot,
Yeah.
then
It's a good point.
no appropriation means no melting.
It's the
That's
sincerest
just
form
we're all
of flattery.
sitting in a bucket together,
Yeah.
without interconnecting,
That's
without
a fair point, yeah.
influencing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
that's-
the appropriation question leads to the concept of a new nation, right? Like if you take the Boers in South Africa, right? They've been in South Africa from before, basically the time that the Pilgrims came here, right? And from what I've read, I've never been to South Africa, but I was fascinated because Teddy Roosevelt grew up in the city. Right? He was born here in maybe 1857, 1858, around then, because he's a little kid when Lincoln dies. He's looking out the window. I think he was dying on 65th Street. I forget where they were. But the reason I bring up is Teddy Roosevelt was in South Africa in the 1890s or so, or maybe early 1900s, and his grandparents were Dutch speaking. So they were from when Westchester was still Dutch, and they spoke Dutch growing up as kids, and they would speak Dutch to themselves. But they are the last generation of Dutch speakers in New York. And he knew stuff from his grandmother, whom he lived with, like Dutch nursery rhymes and stuff like this. So he knew stuff that the Boers knew. So he's in South Africa. They understand the same Dutch nursery rhymes that people in Holland didn't know anymore, because when their families had left, some went to the United States, which would become the United States for the New Amsterdam colony. Some went to South Africa, I guess it was for the Cape Colony, and they both brought Old Dutch with them, that they understood each other, but maybe it would be harder to be understood in Holland, from what I've read on it. So there has to be said that nations evolve into new nations, right?
Sure.
But if you take like that as the United States, and if you want to tease that out more, like, you make a great argument, because then what makes you American? You know, like if in the mutt influence of it, right? Like, in the sense that if you take the Sicilian influence on New Orleans and the French influence from the Creoles and the Acadians, which there's differences there, and the native people, if you mix it all up, and the Spanish were there for a while, you know, do you have an inheritance? Would you say that New Orleans is the center of jazz?
Oh yeah.
Right. That's the Plymouth Rock of jazz,
Yes,
right?
that's where it was
so
invented, yeah.
because you're there contemporaneously, can you say, with all those Italian Americans, many of them coming out of New Orleans, and you would say they had a critical part in its development, if I'm correct?
I would think so.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you factor that in, is it appropriation as much as you had a share in it? You're a shareholder
no,
in
that's
it.
a great point.
Collaboration.
You're a collaboration in
yeah,
it.
yeah. Maybe.
But and if that is the case, what is the Italian? I'm gonna get beat up with the Italian. The Italians in the middle will take credit for this because they like jazz. Like they'll be all right with this. They're not gonna beat me up on this. But what is the Italian influence on jazz? Because if you take who's the Italian boxer from the 30s? You ever see the picture? There's a famous Italian American picture. Maybe it was Rocky Marciano. He has a huge bowl of spaghetti and a glass of milk, right? Yeah. Italians don't drink milk with spaghetti, but you had to have that for the Time magazine, you know. So then Italians, like, when Joe DiMaggio's in Life, or was it Look magazine, the 1930s, I say this all the time on air, they write an article, he's not that Italian, he doesn't smell garlic, and he doesn't like spaghetti, it's Chinese food. Like, so they're definitely saying we're different, right?
Yeah.
But then you take, like, the Frank Sinatra traveling with the mother. You know, you have the Italian aspects of the culture that the Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Rat Pack era brings to the table, right? The constant eating, right? We're going to eat here, and we're going to fly bread in from all different parts of America, right?
Yeah.
Is there that kind of, in a artistic sense, are those influences in jazz? Are there parts that you can find and say?
Yeah, there's I wouldn't say like one person is solely responsible for, like, you know, jump blues or jazz fusion or whatever, but they certainly, like, were many Italian American firsts in jazz, like Nicola Rocca making the very first jazz recording in history. Leon Roppolo? See, I have to use my cheat sheet here because I want to make sure that I'm accurate. Okay, here it is. Leon Roppolo pioneered the first recorded jazz solos. So there was no, like, recorded soloing until him and his New Orleans Rhythm Kings band. Giuseppe Venuti from Philly, he was called the Hot Fiddler of Philly. He pioneered jazz violin, the use of violin in jazz. What else? Guy Lombardo popularized Old Lang Syne with his band. That's not really jazz, but still. Harry Warren contributed over 800 songs, many in the Great American Songbook. So I don't know if you can guess them. Jeepers Creepers, I Only Have Eyes for You, At Last, September in the Rain, You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby, the entire Looney Tunes soundtrack, which is mostly jazz, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he was huge. Like, he basically contributed, like, I would say a quarter of the American Songbook, right? Next to Gershwin and Cole Porter. Lullaby of Broadway. Am I forgetting anything else? The Gold Digger song, We're in the Money. He wrote That's Amore. The More I See You, Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe.
Well, if you from everything you went through, if you take that critical, like that's amore, like Louis Prima, and now Louis Prima's grandparents were born in Sicily, right? So he's already speaking a Sicilian that's 2 generations removed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of it he actually understood. And I also would imagine that in New Orleans, you probably had a patois of Sicilian, because you had Sicilians from all different places. So you kind of had, like, John and I always talk about the fact that Lou Monte, right? Lou Monte's songs, right, that are made for an Italian American audience, which is not, he did do some jazz stuff because that was the time.
Yeah.
But Lou Monte, I think Ray Allen wrote the lyrics, but it's definitely not you can't say they're from here because he uses all mixed up words. But you can figure out what the words, but it's a hodgepodge of dialect words, right? But I said to John, well, that was the lingua franca because you had people from all different areas and you have to be able to speak a common language to understand each other. That's not a particular dialect that's super specific for an area, right?
Yeah.
So you could say, are there any other, besides the Italian American stuff, like the Louis Prima stuff?
Yeah.
Are there any other foreign languages, immigrant languages, that are expressed in jazz? Because,
yes.
What are the ones?
French is huge. French gypsy jazz and Brazilian.
But when you say French, is that French in France or French in New Orleans?
French in New Orleans.
So they're.
I think they brought gypsy jazz to New Orleans. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. So, and then, Brazilian jazz is like specific to like Brazil and Portugal. I mean, it's popular in the U.S. and other areas of the world, but I don't think that's an American that didn't like happen here. I don't think.
But Europe went nuts with jazz.
Yeah.
Once after its creation, and a lot of black jazz artists ended up living in France.
They were treated like human beings in Europe.
Right. So that's but that doesn't surprise me that the French would dig it.
But that's a good question. I wonder, does Italian Americans in jazz predate French gypsy jazz in New Orleans? I don't know. Good question. I
just said I think as a side might be interesting. Yeah. I was talking to a World War II vet in Italy one time. He was really old, and he had the Americans when after 1943 they just stopped capturing Italian POWs because the war was over. It wasn't worth the aggravation.
So he feed them.
Yeah, feed them. But he tagged along with an American outfit. And he was helping them with translation and stuff like that. And I asked him, what was the biggest impression you had of the Americans? He goes, how badly the blacks are treated. He couldn't understand as an Italian. And he said that, he would eat with him, and there was an army cook. I didn't understand. It was an older man recalling stuff. And he's like, they wouldn't let him in the same shower. And he had this big shock. He's like, he never could understand how the Americans who came were liberating you from all this stuff, and he goes how he kept saying how they treated that poor man. That was his biggest, sad, but his biggest impression of the United States was the negativity of that. And if you take that to show what they were leaving in the States to go to Europe, the European impression of how do you have this duplicity as Americans, from that period.
It's like apple pie.
Well, if you take, I would say for your next book, right? The city of Naples had such jazz was so well received in Naples after during the occupation. You figure from 1943 on, but blacks had such an impact. Blacks had such an integral impact. I would say this. I would say
culture,
and musically, if you go through Neapolitan popular music, right? If you listen to really strict Neapolitan popular music, you can hear the Mediterranean influences of the Egyptians.
Yeah,
right.
It's all like that cry stuff.
That cry stuff that predates. That musical notation and all that stuff. It goes all the way back. But if you take the jazz influence, that just a city that's a kind of free, chaotic, artistic city, jazz just kind of took hold in Naples. If you think about how it integrated into the music. But I think that and again, it's because it wasn't seen as a music of color, maybe as much as it was perceived here. If you want to get an Italian aspect on it, because that guy said to me, it always sticks in my head. That guy said that I just don't understand. I couldn't understand how they could treat another human being like he was less than human. This old man said to me. But then again, maybe that's but that's the Josephine Baker syndrome, right? I'm gonna go to some Robeson, the guy that they have the school named in Rutgers, like all those artists that went over.
Yeah.
Now, who are some singers who influence your style?
Ooh, yes. I'm a big Ella lover. I love the like joyful sound in her voice, right? It just, you listen to her and you're like, I'm happy, I love it. So I think I have some of Ella in me. I also love Jane Monheit. She's kind of like a maybe musical theater jazz crossover. And she has a lot of more virtuosity when she sings, which I like. And then I do listen to a lot of Frank because, that's a study in phrasing in itself. It's so funny when I think my dad asked me to sing "Fly Me to the Moon" because that's one of his favorite songs, and this was in the beginning before I knew anything about jazz, and I was like, Dad, I can't sing Frank Sinatra music. He doesn't even sing; he just talks, and I didn't realize that. Because I was used to singing Alicia Keys like and so like I like
Pat sings in the shower,
very virtuosic, and I didn't realize that is a honed skill in itself. That's like he's even an even better singer if he can make you feel like he's just talking to you. And it took me a long time to understand that. And my vocal coaches would say, "You're singing too much." And I wouldn't understand. I'd be like, "What do you mean?" Like, they're like, "Sing less." It's like, talk more, sing less.
We should do an episode with Simona De Rosa and you.
Yeah, I love
her. To talk about the effects of jazz. Because she's a Neapolitan jazz singer.
Yes, and she went to Manhattan School of Music, so she's like really studied as well. Yeah.
Put that on the to-do list.
That sounds awesome. Now, bucket list quartet that you're going to play in front of. And I'm going to make this easier so there's nobody that has bad feelings. This has to be people you've never
worked with before.
With.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
And they can be. You can have a time machine. You can bring people out of the graveyard.
Oh.
You can do whatever you want.
Whoa.
Let's do living first.
Living.
Yeah.
Okay, living. I mean, she's a singer though, but I want to perform with Lady Gaga. Obviously, is a dream. I love Benny Benack. He's amazing. So yes, I would have him accompany, but also duet. I would say, who's deceased, we have to have Sam Butera. Of course, Louis Prima, John Pizzarelli.
Now, are these all singers?
No, if we're really comprising a band.
Okay, good.
So Benny is on horns, and he would also be a singer. Louis would be horn and singer. Guitar, John Pizzarelli. Sam Butera on tenor sax, of course. Obviously, he was instrumental. And then I can't really think of anybody else.
Any drummers? You haven't named a drummer yet.
Oh, I know so many horn players, more so than other instruments, because that's the most similar instrument to the voice. So,
is it really?
Yeah.
I believe that the horns in jazz are what make it a sexually charged music.
Oh yeah. Like sexy
the way the not even even the trumpets, like they kind of vibrate.
Well, I don't know about
all the right parts.
What
this is a family show.
That's okay. You can't have a family without.
I don't know about that. Drums and bass are pretty sexy too.
I agree, but I think that the thing that makes that's unique about jazz, I believe that if you take the horns out, it still can be amazing music with guitars and with. I still love it. Piano's phenomenal. But it's those horns, to me, that make it sultry, we'll call it.
I agree. I'll have to send you a clip from Rutgers because, honestly, the band that I had there was amazing. And I've cherry-picked each of the band members I work with over the course of many years, kissed a lot of band frogs because, you want that right combination of, like, really talented musician, but also respects a female band leader and is not a
Is that
douche.
a challenge?
Yeah. Some people are like, "Whoa, I gotta listen to you,"
That's crazy.
or they just have a big ego and they just don't want to listen to anybody else, regardless of gender. So I have like an amazing band they're like super talented, but also like respectful and humble and awesome. So yeah. But anyway, I have to send you a clip from Rutgers because there was a lot of a lot of sexy horns in the.
I'm not saying it's like my fetish or anything. I'm just saying it's.
If it is, we know now.
I've noticed that to be a thing. That's all.
Yeah.
No, that's phenomenal. And where you're performing, you say 50 plus dates a year.
Yes.
Where are you? This will probably go up in April.
I'm doing a Jazz Heritage Month celebration at the new Italian American Museum on Mulberry Street right here.
Ooh, next door.
So next door. So hopefully you can make it. And I'll be singing all the songs from my albums, talking about the history with a slideshow. We'll have some Prosecco. It'll be a great time. And people can get a free talk about the Sicilian poopy, the puppets. Right? That's what they're called, poopy?
I don't know.
I'm not Sicilian. I got no dog in that fight.
And then, April 10th, I'll be at Cipriani's for the NIAF Gala, the New York City NIAF Gala, which is amazing. April 19th, I'll be at Winnie's Jazz Bar. This is a cool, chill jazz experience where I don't do my Italian jazz stuff. I just do American songbook jazz, from the 20s to the 60s. And it's a 3-hour set, chill. People it's a real cool jazz place. People come and they listen and they snap and it's a vibe. You gotta. May 22nd, I'll be at the Nila Gala in Washington D.C. For the Sons of Italy. I'm doing. We tried to make this work with the podcast. The BAM Festa Italiana, June 7th. I know.
I wish I could have made it.
I'm so excited. Birmingham, Alabama. There's a giant.
We're going to get there.
Yeah,
they'll have you back, and we're going to get there.
And I think I should stop there, but that's through June. But anyway, a lot of places coming up.
That's awesome. And on do you have your calendar on a website or?
Yes, you can go to vanessaracci.com. That's VANESSARACCI.com.
And we'll have a link in the description of the video as well.
Thank you. Or you can follow me on Instagram.
Am I supposed to wrap up now? I'm getting the vibe from you.
the wrap up vibe.
I don't know what I'm supposed to. Hold on a minute. I got to say, what am I supposed to say, Nikki? Thanks for listening. Thanks for
watching, everyone. Please comment.
All right, help me again with this.
Thanks everyone so much for watching.
So now Nikki is coaching me through this. I don't have the cards. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, you got to click like. You got to share. You have to subscribe and share. Like, subscribe, and share, and repost.
Yep.
And is that all I'm supposed to say? Oh, my kazoo! Yes. See, I remember my kazoo. Where's my kazoo?
Oh, it's a musical episode. You got to play a jazz number.
Contribute. What could I play?
Can you play a jazz song?
Summer Wind? Does that qualify?
Yeah. I'll count it for you.
In the mood's good too.
You gonna sing along to my kazoo?
The summer wind.
Hold on, ready? 1, 2, 3.
What's the pitch?
I know what a pitch is. That's for me out of mandolin school. I know what a pitch is.
Let me see if I can sing to this. No, I can't sing to that.
All right, ready?
You can do duck calls.
She can't sing to my kazoo, but I'm gonna kazoo on my own.
1,
Ready?
2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, I can do this. Been blowing in from across the sea. It lingered there and touched your hair. Walk with me all summer long. We sang a song and then strolled. I forgot the words.
Why don't we take this on the road? We're doing pretty good. I never knew I had this in me.
I'd give anything for you to take that on the road.
You sweetheart said.
We'll see you next week.
If you want your life to be great, see that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great. See that you're born an Italiano and your life will be great.